Technics isn't new to the loudspeaker game, the SC-CX700 is their first powered smart speaker design. Also new is the suede-like fabric that wraps around the rather compact two-way bookshelf speaker. And it features a 3/4-inch tweeter resting inside a 6-inch woofer, each powered by its own amplifier, with 60 watts of power for the woofer and 40 watts for the tweeter. While Technics doesn't share a reported response for this speaker on their website, when asked, they said the 700 has a frequency response of 41 Hz to 47 kHz, meaning that for a speaker of its size, it has decent bass. Still, for those who want to feel the punch of a kick drum or an explosion, you're likely going to want a budget for a subwoofer. Like the Pitt and Giblins we just reviewed, a pair of CX700s is broken down into a primary and secondary speaker. The primary is where the system's inputs and outputs reside, with the secondary only needing its own AC power and either a wireless or wired connection to the primary speaker. On the primary speaker, you're going to find inputs for analog audio that include a built-in moving magnet phono preamp, optical audio input, Ethernet port, USB-C port, and an HDMI input with ARC. Additionally, there is a subwoofer output for those who want to enhance the Technics low end using a third-party sub. Of course, being a modern smart speaker, wireless connectivity is abundant, supporting Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, AirPlay, Google Cast, Spotify, and Tidal Connect, as well as a host of popular streaming services through the Technics Audio Center app. There's even support for Qobuz and Deezer in addition to high-res audio, as well as being Roon ready. Since most Technics speakers are limited to a standard gloss black finish, I was surprised to see the more fashion-forward finish options offered here. This pair is in the terracotta brown finish, which is very striking, and when you view it up close, it appears suede-like in texture, but it's actually a microfiber wrap called Dynamica. If terracotta isn't for you, you can spec the Technics in either a charcoal black or silky gray. Now, the speaker setup is very straightforward. I placed each speaker on top of our reference solid steel speaker stands, and I positioned them roughly 2 feet from our wall with 8 feet between them, which worked very well in our 20 by 25 foot room. While these speakers come with their own set of cables, they are relatively short and not very flexible. So I actually purchased longer power and network cables to place the speakers at this distance apart. Real quick. Now, the secondary speaker can be connected to the primary wirelessly. However, for best results, including support for higher res audio playback, you're going to want to connect the two speakers using their PS-Link network ports. With this setup, my measured in-room response reached down to almost 40 Hz, which was in keeping with Technics' claims. I tested the Technics with 2 different displays, the Sony Bravia 7 and later the new TCL QM7K, both connected using HDMI. Heads up though, I had to set both TVs' HDMI audio output to PCM before sound could be heard from the speakers, as the default auto setting resulted in absolute silence. The presence of HDMI let us enjoy music as well as television and movies through the Technics speakers, making them a potential soundbar alternative. I also tested the speaker's optical input and phono input, where I used our Alva TT turntable, though admittedly, the bulk of my day-to-day testing and listening was done using either its HDMI connection or streaming through the Technics app on my iPhone. Speaking of the app, the Technics Audio Center app is the same app we've discussed on this channel when we reviewed Technics' entry-level integrated amplifier, the GX70. In many ways, the user experience on the GX70 and the CX700 speakers is exactly the same. The app may not be as, graphically flashy as some, nor as lightning quick, but it is very stable, at least in my testing on my iPhone 13, and highly functional. From inside the app, you have control over not only the speaker's inputs and wireless connectivity, but also its customization, which include tone controls, preset DSP modes tailored to your setup, as well as room correction features like Space Tune. Now, Space Tune adjusts the speaker's response for improved coherence and intelligibility at the listening position, utilizing the microphone in your phone. Space Tune works, though I have to say the results will vary depending on your setup and room layout. Now, if you don't like having your phone on you 24/7, this may not be the speaker for you, but that's true of most smart speakers. To get the most out of this speaker's performance and usability, you must use the app. Yes, the primary speaker features manual controls, and Technics does include a simple remote. Still, the easiest way to adjust the speaker sound and customize your user experience is using the app. Getting to the good stuff, let's talk about the CX700's bass first. As I've shown here in my measurements, the bass isn't earth-shattering. It's deep enough that you hear it, and in some cases, you'll feel the point of impact, whether it's a kick drum, tom hit, or body blow. But will the rumble of a supercar engine or tank tread resonate and energize your room? No. If you push the Technics too hard by turning up the volume to feel the bass rather than just hear it, you're likely to encounter distortion or some port-related resonance. Now, this isn't the result of bad design, it just is what it is, and that's okay because Technics isn't advertising foundation-shaking bass. Those of you who like to feel the bass as well as hear it will no doubt need to connect a subwoofer, which is easily done using the speaker's subwoofer output. As a result of the speaker's low end, which rolls off just before 40 Hz and being mostly linear up to 100 Hz with no real rise in energy, the sense of body and weight compared to comparably priced speakers, whether powered or passive, may give you the sensation that the Technics are a bit leaner sounding. I know they came off this way when I swapped between the Pitt & Giblin Super Wax Minis and the Technics during my testing, though this isn't unexpected. I mean, the Technics have a 6-inch woofer driven by a 60-watt amp compared to the, Pitt & Giblin's massive 15-inch powered woofer. Still, there are two-way speakers that play to 40 Hz with more confidence, and as a result, they may sound a little fuller overall. Apartment dwellers, or those of you with roommates, the Technics is likely going to be an excellent option for you. Their lack of excessive bass energy down low results in a mid-range that, while neutral, comes across as very clean and clear, if not a touch forward in some instances. I found intelligibility to be good, though more compressed pop recordings, such as those from Halsey or Linkin Park, sounded too lean and just a little too in my face for comfort. Now, these are isolated examples because favorites from Dave Matthews Band, Where Are You Going, or John Batiste's Beethoven Blues sounded great through the Technics. Now up top, I noticed a hint of brilliance or sparkle that sounded pretty good, lending a bit of inflection to metallic instruments or sound effects in movies that was often welcomed. Similar to the mid-range, there were a few recordings where I found the tweeter became too prominent, but this was very easily corrected using the app's tone controls. Strangely enough, at least in our room, Spacetune slightly boosted the speaker's treble response in direct comparison to its out-of-the-box performance, which actually surprised me because most room EQ programs tend to leave the highs alone. Nevertheless, for 90% of my listening, I never had an issue with the Technics treble performance. In terms of soundstage and dynamics, the CX700 is solid but not class-leading or boundary-defying. Center imaging is good, as is separation and definition between the speakers, but the stage, it doesn't stretch too far beyond the speaker's outer edges, nor does it recede into the distance the way I feel Q Acoustics or SONUS FABER speakers often do. Now, as for dynamics, the Technics become more interesting and engaging as you turn things up. Because the speaker is a little shy in the bass, volume is necessary to create that greater sense of contrast top to bottom and just flesh out the sonic picture on a whole. I think most people who experience this speaker would be surprised to learn that this is the brand's first all-in-one powered smart speaker. Minus some minor hiccups when switching between Sony and TCL TVs, the CX700's HDMI connection worked flawlessly, though acquiring the audio signal could take a few seconds. Additionally, its digital inputs and built-in phono preamp were equally reliable and capable. However, before you ask, the phono preamp didn't have a notably different sound from what I've just described, and this is likely due to the speakers using the same Geno engine found in all of Technics' current crop of electronics. So, if you're looking for a warm, round, less precise sound that conjures up sonic images of yesteryear when listening to vinyl, the CX700's built-in phono preamp, or any Technics phono preamp for that matter, likely isn't going to be for you. If the CX is on your radar, SONUS FABER's DUETTO is more than likely one you're also cross-shopping. I know the DUETTO was the first speaker I thought of during this review. The DUETTO features many of the same connection options as the Technics. It will cost you an extra $1,000, but in my opinion, the DUETTO is a more compelling speaker. While the DUETTO doesn't play much lower than the Technics at 40 Hz, it does have more energy at 40 Hz, and thus it gives off the sensation of greater weight. The DUETTO also has more power and plays louder with less effort and strain, more easily filling a room as large as ours. While I like the direction of Technics finish options, the designers stopped a little short. The CX would have looked even better had the fabric wrapped entirely around the speaker. As a result, I found the Duettos more unique and special, and their cabinet design yields a larger, more transparent soundstage. But style aside, I still believe the Duettos are the better sounding speaker too. On to the OG smart speaker darling, the Wireless 50 from KEF. That's another comparable speaker. Retailing for $500 less than the Technics here, the 50 can do everything the Technics can except for connecting a turntable. While the KEF lacks a built-in phono preamp, it features dual subwoofer outputs, which may entice those who want the ability to achieve a more full-range sound in the future. The KEF Wireless 50 is, without a doubt, a great speaker. However, if you're a bit bored with the neutral sound of KEF, the Technics may be a worthy alternative. But for something completely different in style and tone, there are the 7s from KLIPSCH. Retailing for about half the cost of the Technics, the 7s will undoubtedly please those seeking a bigger, bolder, and more contrasty sound for both music and movies at a lower price. I love the 7s. They are nowhere near as refined as the Technics or KEF, but when you want to put your inner audiophile to bed and let your inner teenager out for a bit of fun, the 7s slay all day. I've been fortunate to have reviewed, I think, every modern Technics product, whether it be a turntable, an integrated amp, or one of their passive speakers. If you haven't had the opportunity to do the same, a pair of CX700s may be the closest thing to a manufacturer's, call it, sampler platter that I have ever seen. The CX700s sound remarkably reminiscent of Technics speakers, specifically their older SC-CX700s driven by the Technics CX-70 amplifier. So depending on how you choose to define value, or if you just want to experience what the brand is up to lately, the Technics powered speakers may be the cost-effective way to get your fix. So that's it. That is now my review of Technics brand new powered CX700 speakers. What'd you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you have a question or I missed a comparison, you know what to do. Leave it down in the comments. You never know, it could end up on next week's Unplugged, where we find out what Christy thought of the Technics. In the meantime, remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, see you on the next video. Bye.